Hey, it's Ross Bain with Role Playing Public Radio. This is RPPR special. This is the Dresden Files Season 1 campaign postmortem from Tabletop Tales. And with us, I have four, including me and the GM, four cast members of it. There were way too many people to get everybody involved because scheduling problems, those are real.
It would be hot and sweaty.
Just getting everybody together at the same place at the same time would be ridiculous.
It wouldn't be a very productive postmortem discussion because everyone would want to comment on everything.
Yeah, which is fine, but there's only so many things that go around. But Bill, first off, you have a bit of business to...
Oh, right. Well, I just also, given the particular, makeup of the table, I think we've managed to choose the most confusing vocal similarity group possible because I'm here.
And I'm here.
And then on the other side of the gender, also note that we're at near gender parity on an RPPR recording. Yay! But we have...
I'm here.
And I'm here.
So
I like how no one said their names. That was really helpful.
That's the whole point.
Yeah. We have Bill, Melissa, Dan, and Michelle, and then, of course, me. So I just wanted, to get the names in there. So when I'm taking notes, I make sure I get the right tags.
Right, because you don't know how to tell everybody's voices apart either.
Sometimes there were games where someone will not talk for like 5 minutes, and they'll be like, "Why didn't you tag this person?" It's because I listened to the first 4 minutes and he didn't speak. So I'm like, "Say something."
Something.
But anyways,
Something.
Something.
You guys are awful.
Something.
Yeah, whose voice was that? We could do a whole thing on this, but maybe we should talk about the Dresden Files because we have the first 10 episodes up on Tabletop Tales. You can listen to them all. We had a lot of fun.
Hopefully, we are 3 or 4 episodes away from having season 2 in the tin.
So we'll get more of those out. So Dresden Files, set in Springfield, Missouri, based on the same setting of the novels that were written by Jim Butcher. But Dan has been GMing this, and he came up with his own take on what the Dresden verse is. That the name for it? Dresden verse.
Sure, why not?
I don't know. I mean,
I'm sure I've seen that word somewhere.
The fan name. I think if you go to the TV tropes.
Where did this Supernatural Springfield come from? The campaign concept, because I know you posted a forum or a thread on the RPPR forums a couple years ago.
Thousands of years ago.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I realized that if I wanted to run a Dresden Files game, I would be forced to do one of two things. One, I'd either have to run it in Chicago, and you don't do that.
Because that's where the novels take place for the most part.
Or you have to do city creation as per laid out in the book, which, despite my best efforts on trying to get city creation done, that's asking a lot of people on this podcast to expend one too many Uggs worth of effort to do anything collaborative, especially off
Depending, some people are more interested than others.
But not everyone in the group.
Yeah.
Which is important if you're going to do it.
Apparently.
So I figured that at the very least, if I can't get us to do city creation from scratch, I can at least draw on a common source of knowledge, and then we can just flavor in all the supernatural elements we want. And so that's why I picked Springfield.
Okay.
And so then it's like, all right, what are the creepy supernatural things of Springfield? Well, Hammond's Tower is the most ominous building in the Springfield skyline, so why not use that as the focal point?
If ominous equals phallic.
Sometimes tall. We don't have very many tall buildings.
It's monolith-esque.
Yes. For us, it is.
For
It is
Midwestern
the only
standards.
thing on the skyline.
It's
I don't.
big and black.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
I said monolithic,
I think it's one of the tallest buildings in Springfield.
It's
if not,
the tallest
gotta
building in
be.
the state, or the highest evolution.
What?
Or
not-
evolution. Elevation. Jesus.
Evolution.
Mother of God.
you've been playing too much Pokemon Go.
Maybe. But yeah, it's the tallest.
What are all the tall buildings in Kansas City and St. Louis down in the river bottoms?
Yes. That's exactly what it is.
Oh, because we're on a plateau.
Yes, we are.
Geography.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
The geography's a
Why can't
thing.
you write?
That's statistics from 12 years ago, so don't quote me on it now that
All
I
right.
think about it.
I'm going to
So you took that initial idea of using Hammond Towers as the headquarters for Obelisk. And Obelisk, was this based on Archer, or is this just
there was some themes in there, especially because Tom was involved in the early parts of the discussion as to what a supernatural organization in Springfield would look like. And so he wanted it to have very strong archer themes, which wasn't that hard to pin in. But then once all the character concepts got locked in, it became very clearly that, we weren't going to do satire, espionage themes.
Everybody else brought the grimdark.
Yeah.
Right.
So...
Well, I mean, espionage isn't really a big thing in the Dresden Files anyways. It's more monster fighting and investigation. Which are...
There's political espionage, not like true espionage.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's for like an established faction if you're having...
Right.
Yeah. The concept is an independent agency, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So you started the thread on the forums. You talked about it for a while. There was a little gap between...
A 2-year gap.
Posts, a 2-year gap. So I was not sitting on these podcasts for 2 years. And it kind of, once you finally got your schedule, we started with a character creation
to
concept.
give the listeners at home that haven't heard me talk about this before, to give you an example of for what was going on in those 2 years, I was working a job that for the week of Thanksgiving, I worked 84 hours that week. And then the following week, when everyone was supposedly back in town and was able to help, I ended up working 96. So...
There was no time for gaming.
Yeah.
There was no time for sleeping. So...
There was no time for anything.
There was a week straight he didn't even poop.
No. Pooping did happen because that was one of the few things I could get away with stepping off the floor and having a moment to myself.
You're getting paid to poop. It's the American dream.
Yes.
So finally, new job.
Yeah.
Better schedule. Saturdays off.
And then as soon as I figured out that that's what was going to happen, that's when I pushed really hard to get it scheduled and rolling.
Yeah.
So.
And I know for me, you just suggested a character idea for me on the forums, and I was like, yes, done. All right, you hit gold, which was the teenage Slender Boy, half human, half Slender Man. And I was like, yeah, that was surly teenager and Slender Man. What's not to love?
It's got Ross Payton written all over
It
it.
really does. I get to be a jerk in game. And, So that was it for me. But, like, everybody else, where did your character ideas... I mean, Michelle, you've read them.
Yes.
Most of the... Or all of the novels?
I've read all of them.
So you actually know stuff, so you could...
I do, and that I think was the problem, because I waffled about my character many times.
Because you had so many choices.
So many. Like, at first I wanted to be a regular straight human, like, if you've read the novels, like Murphy. And, the kind of cop character. And I was like, well, that's too similar to her, so I don't want to do that. And then I finally settled on something that's similar to, in the novels, Guard, who's one of the bodyguards, and who happens to be a Valkyrie, but she's a bodyguard for Marcone. And so, kind of in the same vein, I mean, my character's a Valkyrie, so I think Dan suggested that as one of the possibilities.
Yes, because we were looking for supernatural templates that you would be okay with.
Right. And that
would make sense.
Yes. And it also, I think at that point, everyone else had pretty much figured out their character.
Yes, and that's what it was, is that we were trying to figure out a character because you would be the only person in that group that had actually read all of the novels.
Right.
And so we were trying to figure out a character concept.
I needed to be the heavy.
Well, the lore heavy.
Right.
So that way you could warn people to not do things.
Don't go over
hey, don't touch the coin.
You weren't there for that episode.
I know,
so
but I wasn't
And in fairness, the coin was inside of something. It couldn't be seen.
This is true.
No way any of the rest of us could know.
This is true.
That's actually a really interesting idea, and we'll talk more about using an established setting for your game setting, but like matching your character concept to what you know about the setting is actually a really good idea, because Teenage Slender Boy is that all I need to know is what a surly teenager would know about them, which is nothing. And I've read the first novel, and I've read some wiki pages when you mentioned like the coin demon or whatever. I'm like, I'll Google that and look it up. Oh, okay, that's it, and that's it.
Seems like that might be important. Oh god,
yeah, that's a bad thing. So
turns out.
So that was pretty much it for me. Melissa, what about your character? Did you...
Rosemary was actually inspired by a wonderful experience in my life.
Okay.
With a real person named Rosemary.
Okay.
The Celtic lady.
That is her name.
Okay. Rosemary the Celtic lady.
I do not know her last name.
Okay.
I only know her as Rosemary the Celtic lady, and I had the pleasure of sitting with her for 2 weeks while she trained me in the art of Reiki healing. Yes, I'm not making this up. This was a mandatory work experience that I had.
See, you get the fun training.
Truly, I have no idea how this happened. This was an anomaly in my life that I have yet to explain. But Rosemary left such an impression on me, and I still have her books because they were given to us, not because I purchased them.
And because when someone gives you gold, you don't throw it away.
Yes. But so it was that particular experience and my experience of her as a person that made me really want to play her as a character because it was awesome. So at
Melissa's soft selling here. She's really embodying the play what you know doctrine because she is a certified level 1 Reiki healer.
I am, thanks to Rosemary the Celtic lady and no choice of my own. Although I will say it was an experience. That's all I can say about it. But I have
no disrespect meant to anyone who has sincerely held beliefs about Reiki healing.
No, because I am not an unbeliever in the experience. It was that she as a person left such an impression. For instance, she only wears purple every day, all the time.
I fail to see what's wrong with that. I too have met David.
He's David now, not Rosemary.
There was also a strong experience of that animals talk to her, which I thought was interesting and added a certain flair to the training. So yes, as you can imagine, this was such a fun real world experience that I thought, how can this not go well in Dresden? And
have you read 1 to the Fun Factory? Yeah. This is about a 7.
Yeah, no.
I mean, the Fun Factory. This is way more positive than the Fun Factory.
Oh yeah. Like, I mean, it's not like Bingo's Clown Room or anything.
For those, the Fun Factory is a story Cale told about trying to play the World of Darkness in what turned out to be a meth lab. That the people who lived there called it the Fun Factory. So yours was much more positive than that.
It was a very positive experience. There was very little negative.
Have you read a lot of the Dresden novels?
I have read all of them.
Okay, so you were well informed about this.
Well, when I created Rosemary, I wasn't. I was about halfway through.
Yeah,
I think,
which is way more than me. So.
But
and Tom and Aaron.
Yeah, enough to understand the world and how it works and have a good idea.
No, David's read them all.
Okay. I like how it's either nothing or all of them.
Well, that's why we tried to mix that up a little.
Yeah, you just can't stop halfway through.
No,
I did. Compelling.
Well, I only read the first one.
He only read the first one.
Okay, once you get past the third one.
That's not true. I gave him all 3 at once so he could get past the bads.
You have to read at least the third novel. The first and second. True.
Really?
The fourth.
I wouldn't have done
We're
that.
doing such a great job of selling this to people.
I mean, you could just
guys, it's fine. It's only like 1,000 pages. You'll burn right through it.
You really will. Once you get past the first and the second.
Because it's the 4th book where the meta plot starts to kick in.
This is true.
And I think it's like the writing quality.
Yeah. There is something that happens there.
The first one has, you can tell there's compelling characters and there's some good funny, and good stuff and good story.
And there's also the issue
the writing quality is just not quite there yet.
Yeah, you don't actually like Dresden as a person for the first couple of books. You're like, man, you're a whiny bitch.
Honestly,
but he gets over it.
It was the third one. It was when Michael shows up.
Yeah.
I'm like, redemption.
It gets
look at that. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how but going back to Rosemary's.
Right.
You had all this knowledge of the setting. You made Rosemary as this, mystic, I guess. Yeah.
Well, it's sort of the one thing that was sort of my own that was not like the person that I was basing it on is that the character concept and sort of my idea for how she would evolve is that Rosemary doesn't really understand or own her own magical ability at this point.
To a certain extent, I think it's ended up in play more that she just doesn't quite get life.
Well, there is that element, but also that she's interacting with a whole lot of like magical stimuli all the time, but doesn't really know what it means or where to put it or how to make sense of it, and so that's kind of been a fun.
And then in season 2, she gets a mentor.
I did, and it was fun.
She got best mentor, more like
best mentor. Okay, so obviously when we get to the season 2 first one, we'll have to talk about that.
Yes,
but. Bill, you had a bit more of a journey than the rest of us. In terms of characters.
Well, it would be without saying it's like I did try to do some of the collaborative world building by having like one-on-one conversations with people, leading up
small
to
groups, even
or small groups, trying to figure out like what what does a supernatural Springfield mean to you when we say those words? And so, like, Bill's character came out of one of those conversations.
Right. So first off, the one thing for season 2, I will go ahead and I guess, this doesn't transpire till season 2, so in a metatext sense, I will go ahead and spoil Keith, my character from season 1, exits after the finale, just becomes an NPC, and I do switch characters for reasons we'll talk about, basically. Nothing too big, but just, it was, the 90-day trial, and he just wasn't working out, so could you please seek employment elsewhere?
And so he's an adjunct professor at Evangel right now.
Like you do. But as for the actual origin, this was actually a conversation between Dan and myself, and David was also there at a place where a lot of important conversations in RPPR happen, the local hookah bar, the Albatross. If you're ever in Springfield and need to smoke something,
go there.
Legal, go there.
It's a normal.
It's a tobacco.
We're not
bar.
using slang or.
This isn't Denver.
This isn't Denver.
Here, law-abiding.
We are on a plateau, though.
Well, so is Denver. But,
we're not that high.
in Denver. We just don't have that, legal.
Okay,
moving on. At any rate, I forget the exact genesis, but I'm sort of cribbing from Melissa's history because. So Springfield is the headquarters for a relatively large, Protestant denomination. And so somebody needed to play with that at least a little bit. And so given that the Assemblies of God is a very missionary-focused organization...
The lead that Bill is bearing is that my parents were missionaries.
Okay.
I mean, if you want the RPPR conspiracy nuts to just put that pin on the picture on the corner.
It's literally like
You're welcome,
two
Sam.
people. It's fine. They're harmless.
So, given the interaction of faith and the supernatural in the Dresden verse, we're basically exploring, what does Dresden-style faith and the supernatural mean for, evangelical, more Protestant denominations. We get a lot of view of what it means from a Catholic point of view, and the occasional from,
agnostic.
Sort of non-Western or, also agnostic points of view, but very little for, selfishly. But what does this mean from my experience in the world?
And that's an interesting point because, not limited to the Dresden Files too, but I feel like a lot of modern horror and urban fantasy, they go to the Catholic Church because, hey, they've got Vatican, they've got Exorcist, they've got all this stuff that I can all the symbolism,
right?
Or symbology. If I was Dan Brown, which isn't a thing, but
a lot of,
the Protestants, hey, they exist,
right? But especially, and I would almost say intrinsically, without getting too religious studies on this, a lot of Protestantism sort of is around a rejection of that kind of artifice, not used as a negative term, but just
what the Reformation was about,
the symbolism and the use of the sacrament and all of that stuff,
which is less exploitable.
Yeah,
kind
Especially
of intrinsically.
Harry Dresden reminds the readers every book about how symbolism and methodology are super important to the functioning of magic.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And so the Protestant version of that, I think Bill's point is that it's there, it's just not as obvious to outsiders looking in.
Right.
And so exploring, there is symbolism there, but what is it for them?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to, because in as much as Harry talks about it in terms of the symbolism, I think that's something to do with the limitations of a first-person narration on that. I think, if we were more frequently inside the head of, Michael or Father Forthill or whatever, we might get a different view of that. Harry comes from a very symbolically driven tradition, so that's how he views it. But I don't completely believe from, things that Butcher's actually said about it, that's, necessarily the way it works. Or at least not the only way it works.
Right. Because, Dresden's even said himself, he goes, this is the way it works for me.
Right.
I don't need to have all these, symbols and doodads, and I can do it without. It's just easier. because this is the way I...
It externalizes something internal.
Exactly. Yeah. So other people, everyone does magic different.
All that to say, I mean, I don't know, we can, people can actually listen to the episodes if they want the bits and pieces of, who that character was, but I think the more interesting conversation ends up being why I decided to step away from that. And, with full apologies to Dan, I really didn't think ahead far enough, and I honestly end up feeling kind of like I set you up, because I was, asking to explore something from a particular perspective, and, you're plenty open about the fact that you come from a Catholic background, and that ended up not working, because it ended up feeling like a very Catholic version of the AG, and that's not a thing.
Turns out.
Well, that's an interesting point, because, and certainly one of the things is, in any role-playing game, not just whenever you make a character for a campaign, hopefully you're trying to, tell the game master in some way, I want the game to have this kind of element, whether it's D&D, I want to be a drow, so I want to be the good drow, or the renegade versus all the evil drow, I want to have that contrast, or I want to, my character's abilities are like this, so I'm the expert thief, and I want to have lots of traps to deal with and shit like that.
I want to do forging and sniping.
Okay. But in Fate especially, you build a character with these character, aspects, and so you want to say, to a certain degree, I want the campaign themes to be about this. My character is half, changeling, he's half Slender Man, so obviously Dad, the Slender Man has to come in at some point, or the specter of that, whether I'm going to be human, so that element has to come in there at some point. So,
that's going to ramp up pretty hard if you haven't felt that ramp already.
No. And
Spoopy.
everybody, you were so this campaign was very ambitious, I feel, because there were so many characters in there, and you're trying to wrap all of these personal themes to some degree, and sometimes it doesn't always work out. Mm-hmm. And this sounds like that was an example.
Yeah,
But
and
not
also
for lack of trying on your part.
Yeah,
I mean,
because-
I completely own this was an accidental setup. I think you put
Especially-
the effort in. It
especially
just didn't
because
fire.
my experience with the AG from my Catholic background is very adversarial.
Right.
I mean, I went through high school being told by the AG church I was going to hell on a fairly regular basis because I'm an idolater. So,
Yeah.
Turns out the Reformation left some scars.
Yeah.
600 years later.
when that's a regular conversation in your sophomore English class,
Yeah.
it leaves an impression.
And I guess in my own defense, that's not the church that I participate with. So
Yeah, people have different
You're
perspectives.
neutral.
Right,
about it.
yeah.
And,
I'm just kind of
yeah.
but suffice it to say. Oh, go ahead, Russ.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is just one example, but again, going back to a more generic thing, if you make a thief character and then he's an expert trap guy, and it's you who just we're just going to be fighting orcs in a forest, or, there's no traps, it's just it's actually a
He
plane.
throws his picks in the air and turns and walks away.
So it's it's a failed thing because the game master had a different vision, and how do you deal with that?
Yeah.
And I think we just dealt with that pretty elegantly because we got all the story trappings that Keith was going to have to deal with for the grand meta plot for Springfield, and I ended up having an out to tack them onto a different character.
Yeah.
And
so you just kind of adjust. Yeah.
Well, and I also I think I gave you a fair amount of warning that I would like to switch characters, and
So you have to have
I just
that
asked for you to bear with me until I could get it to a good conclusion.
which was perfectly cool.
So that's how you, so listen to this campaign to see how that's handled well, when you have these kind of adjustments, because there's no table flips or anything.
Right. And in full fairness to Dan, the other point we were talking about this ahead of time is there was something else kind of, and not to hog too much mic time, but the other thing that happened is my character got introduced to half of the group ahead of time as something he wasn't. I was portrayed as an analog of the Knight of the Cross, which was never the intention. And then, I don't know if it was intended comedically or, actually trying to bust my stuff, but
I think it was just people didn't realize.
even
That
when I
wouldn't-
said it directly over and over,
Yeah.
that was not the intention of the character. it just didn't seem to be heard, so it seemed like a good time to make an exit.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so sometimes those character arcs don't work very well. And, like, for my part, the Slender Boy, I mean, yeah, that's more of a slow burn, and that's going to be picking up more. In Season 1, I was just sort of establishing, getting used to, like, who he was and what he was.
And that's what Season 1 mostly was, is that establishing the setting in of itself. Because we've talked about how the Dresden campaign in Springfield's going to move forward after Season 2.
Yeah.
Like, Season 1 is the establishing shots. Season 2 is the plot. Season 3 is the moving plots further along. So...
and that's the kind of thing you have to do, especially with so many moving parts in the thing.
Too many.
Like, Michelle, like, you felt your Valkyrie had sort of at least some beginning, like, getting a sense of what your character's arc is, the character's story, or who your character is?
A little bit. I think... I'm just thinking about this now. I think for my major issue is that I haven't done a whole lot of role playing, and
oh yeah, that's right. This was like your first.
This is my first campaign ever.
Yeah.
So
we've done one shots before, but like after that one game, you don't have to think about that character again.
Exactly. She's gone. He's gone. Whoever. And so this was the first time that I had to establish a character and have a thing. And so I don't know if I ever really felt that I found her voice or her real personality. I think I probably would have been better off playing someone, more like me, but I was trying to play like a leader, almost, and so I don't know how well that came off. I think finally by the end of Season 2, I've kind of got a handle on it a little better.
Because you're in a better team dynamic where you're... Because, we were trying to put you in a position where you would have some degree of authority,
yes,
and you could legitimize acting as the in-character... encyclopedia for when the PCs are about to do something horribly stupid.
Which with Team War, was a regular occurrence.
I felt we had a good try.
Well, Ross, maybe she's not talking about
and I think that was my thing, is that I don't know if I ever really got to be, take charge, go ahead. I was more like, oh no, watch out.
Yeah.
Stay behind me.
Yeah.
Again, plan versus execution.
Right.
Well, sure.
Not quite.
Well, I think anytime you make a character
with the player characters,
I know for me, every time I make a character for a campaign, like it's always like the version that gets played is a little, even at the best, is a little different, and often very different from what winds up being. Like I remember in Eclipse Phase, I think most people remember my character Bartleby is like utter super crazy, but I felt he was like just a person who grew up in really bad circumstances and like didn't know better, and by the end of it was kind of felt bad about all the bad things he had done. So
now I'm just imagining him like doing the Yorick monologue to a bag full of cortical stacks.
Oh, like he said, that was sort of the beginning. So you have to get a sense of your character,
right?
And certainly, this is probably your first time playing Fate too.
I played a little. I think I did a one shot at Gen Con last year, but at midnight.
Well, yeah.
Okay. And I know this was
retention.
Melissa.
So,
and before we move on to that, just to give a quick recap of other character origins as best as I can remember. David wanted to play a wizard, but he wanted to play an old wizard. But the way Dresden works is that the older a wizard is, the more powerful it is. So we had to make him a retired wizard, so he was old but no longer practicing unless he had to. Along with some other trappings that will hopefully pan out as his own plot arc progresses. Eric salvaged a character from a World of Darkness campaign, Changeling.
The Changeling Lost or Changeling? The new World of Darkness.
Yeah.
Okay.
That he had wanted to play but never felt got enough screen time, so he just wanted to see how that character would flesh out in a similar but not quite setting.
There is a big, I feel, crossover thematically between Dresden Files and the World of Darkness.
Listening to What the Heck, yes. It's just like executed in a moderately competent way.
Whoa. All right. I'm not even touch that.
Aaron was flip-flopping on a bunch of different character ideas, one of which is that he wanted to play kind of an artificer, like an Egon Spengler type of how to make technology work with magic, even though that's one of the tropes of the setting is that it doesn't. And so finally, on a whim, I was like, we could just alter the Changeling template to allow for ghosts, and you can play Danny Phantom, and then he was done.
And you dangled a children's cartoon in front of Aaron, and he bit.
There was a bit, I wouldn't say, like, if I know what Aaron was going for, I would have built my character differently in terms of his abilities.
Right.
Because I felt there was a big crossover in that we were both stealthy.
Right.
And Aaron is shifting now, and he's going to have to continue shifting.
Well, so is my character.
Even
too.
my laughter is spoilers.
And then that just leaves Tom, I think, right?
And Tom wanted to be a Tom character.
Tom wanted to be a Tom character.
I really do think this is one of the best realized Tom characters, though.
He has a good shtick with talking to the lady in his head. So.
Yeah, well, the first iteration of the Tom character was to be one of the only surviving members of the Red Court, who also happened to be a boy from Brazil who might have been a clone of Adolf Hitler, and wanted to find a way to clone himself effectively so that the Hitler line could remain pure before he fully gave in to becoming a Red Court vampire.
So he wanted to play Krieger.
Starting the Red Reich.
Let me check my card here. With the Mip Moup Squeedly Doo free space, I have Tom Church bingo.
All right.
Sorry, we now have to pause while Dan has an aneurysm.
Oh my god. And then Sean's character.
And Sean's character, he comes in at the end. He just I want to play somebody that is useful for the party, but doesn't know much about the setting. And if this is his only appearance, I'm fine with it. So we cribbed one of the character templates straight out of Paranet papers, and it's just you can play this guy, but with an obelisk theme instead.
Totally works.
Yeah, he's working out pretty well.
And to go back to Tom briefly, I mean, he changed that. I mean, he was...
Yeah, he changed it to...
and was that with your help?
Backed up all the crazy there a little bit.
No, he really did was drop the vampire part.
A little bit.
He dropped the vampire Hitler part and replaced it with crocodile goddess. So...
Okay, now wait, if I go vertical this time, I just need one more.
Pretty good.
I mean...
is the doctor rich?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, got it again! Double bingo!
Oh my god, this is what we need to play.
We love you, Tom. You'll never listen to this, but we love you anyway.
We will. So we will. But... Yeah, and the thing is that I feel one thing that really helped everybody, because Melissa, again, this was your first. This was not your first campaign, but your first campaign in Fate.
Fate, yeah.
So that was a different experience.
It was a totally different experience.
I do remember you saying, like, when we were planning this, that you felt like the character creation vignettes were really helpful in you getting used to the system or the game or your character. Or
I feel like I was previously used to, like in D&D and investigative systems like COC and things like that, you kind of figure out your character by doing and like the mechanisms of the game. But with Fate, like, there isn't a lot of that, and so because it's so much more narratively based, the vignettes were really the only thing at the beginning that helped me feel like, okay, I know what I'm doing, and kind of gave me something to figure out from when I felt a little bit lost, because I spent a lot of time at the beginning feeling really lost. Like, how do I do things?
Okay, so that was more like just learning the mechanics.
Yeah, just learning the mechanics, or like how to make decisions about things, and like how to, rather than just saying I want to do this, like actually having an idea of how to do that within the game that makes sense. Because I feel like even I don't think I was the only one that kind of struggled with figuring out how to do things in Fate, and we had some record scratch moments of I want to do this. Wait, how do we do that?
Well, and I think
Dresden Files is one of the earliest iterations of Fate, and it's certainly more complex than what it has wound up being. Like Fate Core and Fate Accelerated are much more stripped down. I mean, they're more abstract, which kind of makes it complex in a different way.
Right. I mean, I think one could also make the argument it's custom tailored to be that way. I mean, I won't speak for Fred Hicks, but like there's a bunch of design blogs out there on it.
Well, and also in trying to get a gear for this campaign, I was actively saying I want to play in Fate. I want to experience Fate. I want to be able to run it well, and so I need to experience it. as much as possible. And the most experience I got with Fate was with Atomic Robo, and that was
we've talked about that.
Yeah,
were you in the postmortem too?
Yeah, and it's like that was not the best campaign to get a feel for how Fate as a system works.
Right. Well, that was because that was also Aaron's first campaign in Fate, and that was a different version of Fate than what you were using. The Atomic Robo system is pretty complex actually, and it's more abstracted in certain ways than Dresden Files. Like the refresh power system, the Dresden Files is pretty it spells out exactly what those things, what you pay for, get and do. So like, if you read all the stuff about what your abilities do, you have a good sense of what they can and can't do. Where in like Atomic Robo, it's way more vague in some ways.
It's way more vague, and you get to define what your powers do more often than not.
Yeah,
with the way super science works.
So it is a challenge.
But if we haven't said yet, I mean, I said before we started recording, I think Dresden and Fate is one of the best marriages of fiction and game system that's out there, especially as you get deeper into it, because now that we're through, essentially everyone but Ross at this table is through their section of the second season. I think we're actually getting to the point where it's working and doing the things it wants to do, and it feels really cool. Like the way, because the fiction of Dresden has such a unique, but even beyond that, such a distinctive approach to magic, that the fact that it actually manages to capture that in a way that casting a spell in Dresden the RPG ends up feeling like a spell in the fiction is just, wow, that's lightning in a bottle. And it feels really great to do that.
I mean, that's true. I feel and Dresden Files is obviously based on historical hermetic and occult magic to a certain degree, circles and rituals and true names and that kind of stuff. And it's based on folklore, fairy tales and that kind of thing. So you do feel like there, you make pacts and deals with various beings, and there are very serious consequences for screwing that up.
But at the same time, and not to contradict, but whatever.
Yeah.
What Jim Butcher has kind of said about the intentions of Dresden the character and the magic in general is that he wants it to feel like he's just a worker in a force. I mean, Dresden is a plumber for magic, and it pulls that off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Whereas there are other people that make the magic look and feel more like an art.
Right.
Whereas Harry Dresden approaches it like a plumber.
Yeah, a craftsman.
Yeah.
Get the job done the most straightforward way possible. Yeah.
But even then, that it's about bits and pieces of knowledge and redirection of energy and force. And,
so we have to talk more about the setting the game in a fictional universe that's very well established. I mean, there's quite a few novels and things out there, and so you have to sort of incorporate. And we touched on this earlier. You don't want to set in Chicago, obviously. And there haven't you can use the organizations that are in there, but you haven't used the factions, I guess.
Right.
But there hasn't been much else from the actual stuff in there aside from those.
The fact that the names exist.
Yeah.
And that's very deliberate, but that also I feel is also very true to the way the setting is established, is that these are factions that are intended to organize global efforts. And in doing that, they're just, the heavy hitters can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
And at the same time, yes, there is a meta plot going on in the Dresden books that probably as of now, because we're technically in a divergent timeline with how things are going to end up, where they may or may not be influenced by what happens based on word of Jim in future books. But at the same time, it's you don't need to deal with Harry Dresden, because Harry Dresden has his own stuff to deal with right now.
Well, yeah.
And as long as I don't try to be well, what can happen? Let's see what you guys do while Harry Dresden is doing this. And it's just no, that's not going to work. But that doesn't mean I can't do things the Fate courts are interested in what you guys are up to.
Right.
Because the Fate are technically capable of being in more than one place at a time. Because that's just how powerful they are.
Right.
as also the Denarians. They're a worldwide organization of 30 demons that at any point in time you're never really sure how many of them are active. And Jim Butcher has not defined who all 30 of them are. So it's just like, these 5 are going to be relevant for my campaign. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be ones that I make up. And whether or not they become relevant later, that doesn't matter. So...
Yeah, so like Melissa or Michelle, do you guys feel like there are any elements from the novels that you would like to see in the games? Or like, do you feel, I mean, like, how do you feel the mix is right now? Dan's original characters do not touch versus the established setting.
I think I'm kind of glad that they don't, because if you bring in too much, then you get sucked into recreating something.
Okay.
Yes.
That's a good point.
And... you know, because like even when you're interacting with characters where it's like, oh, you're based on so and so, then immediately you start filling in pieces and kind of lose the, not really the surprise, but sort of the naturalness of figuring it out. And so I kind of like that it informs it, but not too much. And so you get to kind of experience it without prior knowledge.
Right? And even still, like, there's an adversary that I ripped, probably carbon copied straight out of one of the novels, in terms of power set, but in how they were executing their plan, I was hoping that I achieved something different enough to make you guys engaging and second guessing what was going to happen.
Right.
Which I think I did.
Well, and I think you have, like, there's been moments where you've pulled in things that were almost straight out of the book. But it's only been small pieces that ended up just being, like, fun. Like, oh, that's there. That's neat. But it wasn't, like, a major feature of the plot that spoiled
more
anything.
like an Easter egg kind of thing.
Yeah. It's not like, let's fight the, well, like, I can't remember where season 1 ended and season 2 began. Black Court. Because we saw her.
That was season 2.
That was season 2? Okay, well, we won't talk about that.
Spoiler.
So, there is a character, that comes in.
Deleting that.
But,
too late.
No, it's fine. I don't think it gives anything away. Yeah. But it's almost like just seeing, okay, well, we met a Black Court vampire or something like that. We met a member of the mob. We met a Denarian.
But you didn't.
Well, I know what Denarians can do. We met the Fomor. Okay, I know what the Fomor can do.
Right.
It didn't influence, how we...
Well, you didn't meet the
they
specific ones from their novels either.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's like people wouldn't play Tour de Realm style games if there wasn't something fun about it, dysfunctional as they tend to be. And I think you did a great job of getting like the very atomic level of what's fun about that recognition without it being, all right, everybody back on the tram.
Yeah.
That's true. So I feel, I mean, I knowing very little about the setting comparatively, it felt fine to me. I couldn't tell what was original, what wasn't. So
yeah,
it was
credit for all of it.
It was a masterful setting. But I feel one common theme of this first season of it was that everyone was sort of learning the ropes in some way, whether it's like learning how to do the same character session after session, or learning the game system, or learning how to interact or run 2 tables, basically.
Learning how to GM all over again.
Yeah. Because you've taken quite a break from your previous games.
Yeah, I went from going on a very, very long break of running games to I'm going to try to run 2 tables at once with the same meta plot.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've done that, and I don't do that regularly.
This won't turn into a dumpster fire at all.
It hasn't.
There were no dumpster fires.
There were fires.
There were fires.
And I think people give
one of them may have been in a dumpster. I wouldn't put that past anyone, including myself.
And to be fair to dumpster fires, those are good fires because they're contained. Like a dumpster is designed to keep the fire there. It's not going to spread anywhere else. It keeps keeps the hobos warm. It's a useful fire.
Also, are you confusing dumpster with 55-gallon drum again?
They're both contained fires. Like they're not an uncontained fire. Like
right there.
Ross Payton, fire expert.
Contained fire expert.
Yes. I just feel dumpster fires get a bad name when, like, if I had to choose where a fire would be, the dumpster would be like number 3. I mean, gallon would be number 2. I'm not sure where. It depends on where the
number 1 anywhere but where I am.
See, Dan knows where it is. If I'm in a dumpster, I don't want this to be some sort of trick or treating thing.
I didn't mind.
So, anyways, that was a bit of a diversion. But I just, again, dumpster fires I feel are unfairly maligned. It's the non-dumpster fires you have to be worried about.
This is Ross's soapbox for the evening.
Soapbox's best soapbox.
Anyways, other campaigning elements. I know, like, part of this was also learning how to plot in terms of, like, for two groups. Well, for two groups, which is a lot different because, you deliberately kind of mix it between Team Guard and Team Face. But I feel like those specialties weren't, by the end of season 1, it felt like they were pretty interchangeable in terms of abilities because both had combat and social stuff.
No, we were still bereft of combat ability at the end of season 1, which was the point I kept trying to remind people and which their brains seemed impenetrable to absorbing.
Well, you can't just not combat in Dresden. Like, it's complicated.
Yeah.
No, it turns out you can, because we did.
Also, there's just one thing. If you're thinking of running Dresden Files as a role-playing game, as a GM, you need to be familiar with how combat magic works, how evocation works, and you need to make sure that the person that wants to play an evocator actually is doing the homework. Because you need to...
And there is homework.
There is homework.
As usual, I will plug something I found online, and Ross, I'll try to get you this link and probably forget.
Yeah.
There is someone who's done about a nice 7-page rundown on what you actually need to do in terms of homework to do magic in Dresden.
Oh, in the fate mechanics and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. That sounds useful. Yeah, I have not looked at that. I briefly looked at that section. I mean, the
Just
Dresden...
long enough to nope.
Yeah, well, just like, it's not my character concept, so I don't have to. I'm free!
But no, now Slender Boy has a Trinitite knife.
This is true. Spoiler.
Oh, yeah.
Season 1? Well, that was pretty simple, though. I mean, in terms of ability. It's just a knife. Towards the beginning of the campaign, certainly the character vignettes were very, like, energetic, very fun, but then the first session or two, they were sort of, like, getting used to figuring out what the pacing would be. But by the end of season 1, especially, like, at least for Team Guar, on my part, the whole, like, highway, the truck hijack.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I sadly was not there for the finale, but the crossover. But it sounded like it was really picking up. It was like a really solid, like, part of that. Yeah, it was just learning the ropes again. I guess.
The point of the season 1 finale was, like I said, is to finalize making sure that you guys knew what the setting was and what the stakes were by establishing Obelisk Tower as kind of like a base to fall back to.
Yeah,
that it is a serviceable place where you guys can find a safe location because the Fomor are coming. And they're here, and they're not playing nice with you anymore because you proved yourselves to be more annoying than ignoring would simply allow.
Oh, whatever.
Was there some, like, I mean, again, I'm not as familiar with the setting. Was the choice of the Fomor as the primary antagonist or were there other ones that you could have chosen?
The way,
or are they really
the point of the timeline of the fiction that I chose to set the campaign to start at is at a point where the Fomor finally make a push to try to grab more power in the grand scheme of the supernatural nations.
And was that the most recent when you started the game, or is that?
It was close.
It was close.
It's still ongoing, for one thing. The other thing is, as an antagonist in the series, they logically, but nonetheless, come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, no one who is not incredibly knowledgeable knows about them as a thing.
Like, they know rumors, they know speculation, but they've been so far removed from everything, there's no good intelligence on them.
Okay.
And they do, they do seem to come out of nowhere. They're like, well, what kind of logical thing is this? Is it Fae? Well, not really. And is it vampire? No. Is it... What is it?
Neither fish nor fowl.
Yeah.
Right.
Or really more fish.
I mean, it's...
In that situation.
It is strangely a good execution of the giant space flee from nowhere trope.
Yeah. That's true.
Well, also, it's a good excuse to include deep ones.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are things hinting at the meta plot that suggest that there's more of a deep one feel to the Fomor than what Butcher's
I certainly got that
letting on.
from what you put in the game. Yeah.
Knowing Deep Woods, it's not like there's no subtlety there. Like it's
Right.
very definitely that.
Yeah.
It's more like they found an opportunity. A power vacuum occurred.
Right, like not in a necessarily mythos sense, but in a what are the thematic tropes of Deep Ones? They're absolutely that.
So
Yeah, cool. What were some of your favorite moments during the campaign? I know, obviously, for me, I'm going to be very obvious and be like, must get friend at airport.
Oh my god, that was the best.
I turned out to be really good at lying to cops.
Are you
And
sure? Did he tell you he was a cop?
he was wearing a uniform and everything. I know there was one time when we were coming back from Wilson's Creek.
yes, you had the body of the necromancer that
That's right.
Misty headshotted. No, shot through the heart.
Yeah.
That's right.
You're to blame.
And she was to blame. Literally, that was.
God, it was such a terrible
You
moment.
got fate points for it and everything.
You are still, until
I
the
know.
conclusion of season 2, to blame.
Yes.
So those
Terrible
two
things.
moments where I got to just bluff my way through cops and using my powers, I thought it was really
the
fun.
droids you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
You felt like you spec straight into Mastermind.
Yeah, no, it was great. It was really fun, and I think everybody had a blast out of it. Those are the most, and just sneaking into the police station and telling that cop to buzz off and go to the airport to pick up his friend, which you've used, and I know you've hinted that is going to come back as a reoccurring thing, and that's fine. That's great.
Friend,
Yeah,
Friend.
let's get friend.
I love that. So.
Are you friend?
Michelle, what were any of your?
gosh.
I mean, I think you shooting necromancer.
I
was a
really
good-
do think that was the best. Missing the first time, I think actually is the best moment.
Like, yeah, how she was setting up, like, I'm going to do the awesome lethal headshot.
Oh, my
Whoops, I
God.
missed.
Yeah.
Totally missed. Oh, just terrible, terrible things. Yeah, that was pretty good. Anytime that Tom and I got to charge into battle together,
Oh yeah, because you were the two combat heads.
oh man.
That's a heavy metal album cover. Valkyrie with the sniper rifle riding the back of a giant crocodile.
Yeah, basically, that was pretty epic.
Airbrush on Vans heads.
Is this yes or
Yes.
Genesis?
No, wait. Not only that, but the crocodile is wearing Amazonian battle armor.
Oh yeah.
like
because-
you do.
Well, sure.
I mean-
I also like the moment where we convinced the football team to join us. With
Oh,
their
that's
weapons
right,
in
that's
the-
right.
That
in the
didn't take
highway.
much effort on you guys because Team Face already laid the seeds for that.
Yeah, we've kind of
And
just
then they
asked-
decided
good moment.
this would be a bad idea. We probably shouldn't do this.
and we were like, heck yeah, let's do this. Like we did.
Melissa, what were some of your favorite moments for Rosemary?
I think any moment where she was trying to interact with Coyote was a good moment. I have a lot of good moments of like Grumpy David, Grandpa Wizard.
Just you two bickering, basically. I guess.
Well, no, not bickering. Of like Rosemary feeling slightly dumbfounded by him because that happened a lot.
Let's just say, like, I am not the only possessor of the flat what in
Yeah.
the Sunwolf family.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of that.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember. I'm having this vague.
Pledge. You had
Yes.
so many good interactions
I
with
had
Pledge.
good interactions with Pledge, and then I have sort of this fun mental image of David's character's house being in the middle of Frat Row.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember this
Yeah,
part?
yeah.
And like watching him interact with drunk frat boys, like that was particularly fun. I really
Okay.
liked that moment.
Yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be your character, just your favorite
Yeah.
moments in
Yeah.
season one.
Yeah. General Coyote stuff is great, especially the, like... Okay, well...
With the book. You guys spent
Yeah.
an entire
Yes.
session bargaining with Coyote over that fucking
Right, the
book.
Coyote parts of that were great. Like,
Den has fun playing Coyote.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, what GM wouldn't have fun with
I
an
know.
archetypal trickster god?
Right.
You know.
Well, and I guess this might be season 2, I forget. But when we later managed to invite Coyote to divest himself of his moon portfolio.
That was season 1.
Was it?
I think so.
I don't think it was that fast to turn around. I think it's season 2.
It was season 2 when you did that because as long as he had the Moon portfolio up, that's where he was hiding the book.
Because we told him to.
Because we didn't break season 2.
Right, okay.
We were still Team Guar and Team Face for the first part. We didn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's true.
that's what I'm getting confused. Is that some of our stuff was still season 2?
Yeah.
Like with
Well, there was kind of a blend.
Yeah.
There was,
Yeah.
kind of.
Okay.
We did the finale and then kept going.
and then
Like,
kept,
I mean,
and then had part of season 2
So,
and then the next and then switched teams.
Yeah. So, Dan, what about you as game master? What were your favorites?
I had, oh my gosh.
Which child is your favorite, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, I have another new one. Giving all the characters nicknames when I couldn't remember their real names.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up with Ghosty McGee.
Ghosty McGee for Aaron's character.
Aaron getting so pissed.
That was that's always
Do we
always
even
good.
know his actual name? It's just
Marcus.
Ghosty McGee, right?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Sure. Until you said it. No, not
Yeah.
a clue. It's Ghosty.
No, that's always fun. Getting Aaron to be a little bit salty. He's-
Favorite moments? Season 1, the highway battle was really good because I really enjoyed how Team Guar actually thought through how to set up an encounter.
yeah.
It happens.
Yeah.
way.
I mean
That's why.
that led to that kind of planning stuff actually led to my favorite stuff in season 2 too. With in Branson. But anyways, yeah, keep going.
You guys negotiated with the Earl King early on, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a good moment.
I very much enjoyed that.
Am I there
Here, we
for
have
that?
brought you a hunter.
No, that was
Oh,
Team
that's
Face.
right.
Yeah. Unless you guessed.
Because
I was
Were
like
you
on
in
their
both?
You bringing him a hunter was a scene 2 thing. Season,
Oh, okay.
season 1 was where you negotiated a 6-month hunting ban.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That was me because that was whenever I finished up my vignettes.
Yeah.
And I crossed over for like their first episode or something.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yep.
Very interesting. That Earl
Stealing
King.
all the cocaine.
All of it.
Oh yeah, so you get the
Marcus
mob
and-
up,
Yeah.
Yeah, Ghosty McGee and Slender Boy
right.
stealing all the cocaine from the cops.
I forgot all about
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so I did mention earlier, like, I felt like characters are kind of too similar in abilities, but like then we made it work by just stealing everything.
Right.
When it was appropriate. It's like, when all you have is pickpocket hands, then everything
Take
looks
all
like
the
something you can
things.
pickpocket.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure that's how that phrase goes.
Yes.
So yeah.
And I did like how I had some reservations about having the crossover finale, especially with
It looked good.
with the way the lineup set up of who showed up. Like, not that
Yeah.
I'm saying that the people that were in that session were bad players. It was just kind of how is this gonna resolve?
Yeah. It was the one night I was working,
Wonderful,
Dad.
horrible way.
I was out at Lake Stockton watching them film a movie while I sat in a boat. Filling shot glasses with apple juice so they're getting take after take. Literally, it was my job that night. It
Nice.
was prop manager for a movie.
But I did like the moment, and I think Bill, you were the one that was the voice of reason during the finale
Oh,
when
in the like 2 meta levels removed sense.
yes.
When Aaron made a choice and people started calling Aaron out based on knowledge of the fiction about the choice he was making.
Was this sticking his hand in the thing?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I told those
Sticking his hand in
people,
the thing.
why are you calling Aaron out on that? You've known Aaron longer than I have, so you know his pattern. So obviously, if you're calling him out on doing something, you must want him to do it harder.
Don't poke the bear.
And you said this while Aaron was there, I assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Aaron was like, yeah, of course I'm doing it.
Yeah.
He got a little salt in his face about it.
Until I pointed out that I was not saying anything offensive to him about him. Like,
Yeah.
I am not impugning his decision to usually double down when someone challenges him for once.
And
I am
feel
impugning people who continue to do that when they think what he's doing is a bad idea, knowing that will only make him do it harder.
and exposing yourself to a Denarian is one of those things that I gave Aaron, I think, 2 or 3 chances to clarify what exactly he was doing. So that way...
Well, I thought the thing about that was that he did not know that the coin was in the thing that he was granting.
Well, no.
It was manifesting the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. It
Stick your hand in the evil thing.
Yes.
And so I I just wanted to make sure, because early on I was like, okay, Aaron, so your plan to deal with these Fomor servitors and foot soldiers, who we've already established are mostly still human, that you want to poltergeist and make a grenade ethereal until you deposit it in their body and you pull the pin on the way out.
Right, he's doing the ghostly Kansas City shuffle.
Yeah.
So you're just murdering people en masse with grenades deposited in their chest cavities. And now you want to do that with the giant evil demon Fomor hybrid thing. You just want to stick your hand right in there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a ghost hand. What harm could it do?
Damp.
Oh god. I wish I wasn't
Good
there,
times, I know.
Well, just in the look on everyone's face when it was just like, it's like, Aaron, you can spend a fate point to avoid the really bad, or you can spend a fate point to avoid the really bad, and it'll just be mostly bad. It's like, oh yeah, your hand's now branded with the mark of Barbados.
Yay!
Oops.
Which comes up obviously in season 2 a lot more. So kind of the plot.
Yeah.
Tiny bit.
I know what you're laughing about.
Yeah.
I
It's
forgot.
funny what you're laughing about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel
Good
we've
times.
covered campaign or season 1 pretty well in terms of highlights, things, lesson learned. I mean, it was just a general learning process for all. I mean, we all had fun, obviously.
Oh,
because we kept playing. Any final thoughts? We'll just go around the thing, Michelle.
No.
Okay.
Good. I like it.
I mean, what did you
Keep
learn
going.
about learning the same character over? I guess.
Ooh. That I really need to work. Well, I don't know. I'm kind of half and half. We're a pretty casual group, so I don't feel like acting skills and maintaining a voice, is like super important.
Right.
But maybe a little. I decided early on. I'm like, you know what? She's just gonna be a little more cavalier and be like, hey guys, cops, what's up? She's just gonna be cool about it because that's
adapting.
all I know how to do.
From your. I think it's okay to you envision your character as X, but then in play it comes out as more Y, and be like, all right, yeah, I can embrace the Y. Yeah.
She's not exactly.
There's the what I've rolled, what the GM saw, what I played.
Yeah.
Yes,
there you go.
exactly.
For me, it's just embracing fate as a player. I think. I mean, and just learning more about the Dresden verse,
And I think and part of that is, as GMs and players, especially learning fate, is that coming to an understanding that the GM can make compels, but the players should also take some responsibility to invite compels.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And I think
Especially with a
where-
large group.
With David's being cranky wizard grandpa dad, uncle grandpa dad, I don't know how many more modifiers we can put on that. Grunkle.
Yeah.
Was that if David was more open about saying, I'm trying to invite a fate point by playing up grumpy wizard dad, I would like a fate point for that. That would have been more understanding. Oh, that's what you're doing. I just need to give you your fate point so that we can move on.
Yeah.
Right.
And
with so many of us being
I mean,
new to the setting,
I think something we have learned is that there is sort of an adjustment of mind and expectations from playing Fate, because D&D and other role playing games are more like I would say it's like a video game, but like you're trying to 100%. It's like a challenge and your character has to overcome, and the more challenges overcome, the better off you are. Where in Fate is, the more potholes you can hurl yourself into face first early on, the better off you'll be when you get to the ballroom and you'll be the belle of the ball or something like that. So,
which is why Fate is so good at Dresden, because Dresden is like approaching 20 stories of getting beaten up until you one-shot something.
Suffer until you're awesome.
Yeah, basically. And that's like how a lot of fiction is, weirdly enough. But changing your mindset to that kind of expectation is a bit of a it's counterintuitive for a lot of players, some more than others.
And that's the way, with this, I think what the other games I've played before, there seemed like there was a lot more direction. So I was expecting, you walk up to a cave, do you go in or do you not? Do you turn away? Whereas this was more like, you're here. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Oh
That's one of
God,
the key
we have
differences between
exactly.
one-shots and campaigns.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so getting into that mindset of, oh, I have to come up with, some of the story and I have to figure out
the
what's
collaborative.
the best way.
It's not just the game master throwing stuff at you.
Right.
You have to throw stuff back at him.
And I think finally by season 2, I finally got more into that. But at first I was just like, I don't know. What are my choices?
Yeah.
I will say,
Yeah, I do.
without tooting my own horn too much here or anything, but one of the things now that I think I understand a little better and that reminds me the most of Fate is the one shot of Dying Earth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Brand that you three played in, because it really ends up being the same kind of cadence. It just tries a little harder to pull that adversarial and you're gonna get beat feeling out. So,
Yeah, you're not always going to win every time. And you're not supposed to. Yeah.
Right.
That's true. So, Melissa, were there any lessons that you learned? Or, what have you taken away from season 1?
Well, I think that as far as Rosemary is concerned, she accidentally became a ditz for a minute, which I realized, that's really not what I want to do, because playing that long term in a campaign is just a terrible, terrible idea.
Right.
And so, trying to figure out how to retract that, but in a way that made sense and felt natural, which I think in season 2.
The mentor.
That gets accomplished and is getting more and more accomplished. But I think Fate, to me, the mental switch is investigative games in D&D. It's all about the doing. You're constantly doing. It's what's the next thing I'm supposed to do? And Fate feels much more like let's just sort of explore and see and be, and it's a little less
procedural
concrete.
versus dramatic.
Yeah,
It's more character focused.
Yeah, and that I think that just sort of figuring that out and knowing how do you still play a game, scare quotes, in the midst of doing that, how does that actually happen? And so I think by the end of season 1 and definitely in season 2, that gets more figured out. And I think as we all get better at it, it really shifts because everybody's getting better at it together, and that makes it.
Yeah, I think there's a certain thing of there's learning the group, and everyone starts out learning this sort of group. Every group dynamic is different, even if it's the same players.
Well,
same players, different system, different characters. It's a new.
Can't
It's a
step
new.
in the same river twice.
Exactly, and you can't play the same game twice.
And group dynamics matter so much more. In a Fate game and in a dramatic game than it does in a procedural. Because in a procedural, even if you have a character that you're, don't really mesh with or don't know what to do with, you're still just doing the thing. Let's just get the thing.
Let's punch that monster.
Still rolls.
Yeah, and this is not not that way.
Yeah, because even if you don't have a fighter, wizard, cleric, rogue, you can just, if you have 2 thieves, you can have them solve the problem just as well by stealing all the cocaine in the dungeon. We got a little lost there, but
Metaphor drift. Metaphor drift.
Just a tiny bit.
What's in those pies?
Yeah, what's in those pies? Any final thoughts, Dan? I feel we've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah,
I just want to give you.
Dresden Files, Springfield.
It's a rich tapestry. Yeah,
It's a rich tapestry. And listen to it, comment on it, give me feedback because I want it to continue.
Yeah.
Maybe not run it so hard all the time, but be able to come back and run 3 or 4 sessions of it as.
Yeah, you're adapting the campaign structure as time goes on. So season 3 will be different.
And I need to know what people like and what people don't.
Yes, please comment on Tabletop Tales on the sites or on the forums or on our Facebook group.
Also, Armitage Files.
Yeah.
That's a thing I do.
That's a
Plug.
We're still doing a lot of campaigns. It's a Tabletop Tales campaign-focused podcast. It's on the big button on the right. We'll have links in the show notes, too. So, and I'll have a campaign page with all of Season 1 episodes in order, so you can just link to it. Woo! All right. We'll talk to you next time. It's Dresden verse. All right. Talk to you guys next time.